Hey, we are live. It's Monday. Oh my gosh, I'm so excited for this episode, you guys. So this episode is going to be, let's see how many pages. It's nine pages long. So on par with some of the other things we've been reading. This is what we have left to read in we have episodes 9 and 10 this week, and then 11 and 12 will be the finale. The last I just keep thinking about, for those of you that do not know I have a thing stuck to the end, to the back here. For those of you that don't know the ending to this book, that you have not actually read this book yet, you're going to love the ending of it, but then you're going to die because you're going to be like, where's the next book? What's going on? There's a huge twist at the end of this book, I will just say. But today is a set of some of my favorite scenes, and then I'm going to leave you on a bit of a cliffhanger. Surprise, surprise, right? I know. Thank you guys so much. I think that the happiness is showing because I'm feeling so much lighter than I was before when I was trying to, sometimes this is just like a little bit of wisdom from my life. Sometimes I feel like when we are trying to force something to work, be it a relationship, a job, a situation with a house, anything like that, when sometimes it's definitely worth fighting for the things we care about. But at the same time, sometimes when we're trying and every which way we come at it, we're just facing resistance and problems and all that. Sometimes the best thing you can do for your own mental health and happiness is just to let go of it and say, okay, maybe this is not what's meant for me. And I'm going to, even a story idea, LA, exactly. That can be the truth too. It's like, sometimes you can be like, I'm trying to make this story work and it's just not happening. So it's that lesson to, even though we learn lessons sometimes, then we have to relearn them later. Kayla, hey, I don't know if you saw that I hung my Sarah Cannon. I'm going to have to take it down now because I have to get out of this house, but I did hang it up over there and it's bringing me much joy. So thank you for that. I should have hung it just a little bit lower so it would show in the frame, but I just love it. It makes me happy every time I look at it. So thank you. But sometimes I think that when we are able to release what isn't meant for us, or just say, you know what, I don't know how it's going to work out, but here, I'm just going to stop worrying about it. And we release that pressure, because it's hard not to worry. But at the same time, me sitting here going, I need this to work out, it's just not going to do any good. It's like we did all the actions we could to make sure we were going to try to get our house, and it wasn't working out. So now that we have turned the corner to let's go on this grand adventure, we are, oh no, the video isn't loading. If you can hear the audio, so you said you can see the chat, but the video isn't loaded. I don't know if she can see it, but tell her, if you guys can see me, tell Rana to try to restream or whatever, because I don't know. Hopefully you guys are seeing me fine. So Cheryl says, I'm a couple episodes behind, so I'm just saying hi and I'll be watching. Oh, thank you so much for giving the thumbs up. That is super, super helpful. Okay, so Angela can see and hear me. Thank you for telling me that. But I think that now that we've got this plan and we're like, okay, where are we going to go? And it's this big adventure. There's a lot to figure out, but it's also making me feel so excited and so adventurous, and just there's all the things. But we have a couple of challenges. So I'll share some of that stuff with you guys in vlogs, which I'm way behind because it's a terrible time to not have an assistant. So I was especially missing Janet this weekend so much because I had to launch Publish and Thrive, which is my self-publishing course, without any help. So it was a lot of work, but at the same time, totally worth it because I'm very excited for this. And I know some of you joined, some of us here in this community have joined the course. So that is really cool. But we are going to basically just take off, and I'm going to be running my business from the road, which is cool. And we have explained that Evie doesn't really understand the adventure idea. She has no idea what's going on. But Andrew, I think, gets it. He knows what's happening. We've explained it. The hardest thing is to figure out how we're going to condense all of our stuff, because we have a very small car. So we just drive a little, it's a 4-door, thank goodness, at least. We have this small 4-door Hyundai Elantra, and it's, I don't know, 6 years old. It's still in good shape, but at the same time, it is small. It's a very small car, and it was never intended to be our like main car, but situations happened and it just was our main car, and it's paid off. So we were like, well, we'll just keep it. Especially we were glad we had kept it during the pandemic, because it would have been sad to have bought a brand new car and then just paid that payment to not be able to leave your house. But we don't have a new car now. And we talked about, we could try to go buy a new car, but then if we want to buy a new house, it's like the worst thing you can do is buy a new car and get that loan, because your credit takes a hit and all that stuff. So we've looked into a ton of different options. We're definitely not going to do an RV, because it would stress me out to have to figure out all of the things. Like, I want to stay in a house. I don't want to have to work from an RV. I lived in an RV when my house burned down, and I think that I would just have like, I did not enjoy that kind of life. So I don't think we'd do an RV. I don't think I would enjoy driving it around, and I think it would stress me out. But we talked about renting a car. Our car isn't big enough to tow anything. So we're like, oh my gosh, what are we going to do? So right now we have a plan. We bought this giant bag from Amazon that's like a bag that goes on the top of your car. And we're going to see if that works, that we could put some of our things in that on top of the car. We have no idea, but it kind of makes me laugh because it's not stressful at all, which is what tells me that this is the right path for us, because I'm just kind of having fun with it. Like, okay, well, we'll see what works out and we'll figure it out, and it'll be kind of a fun little adventure. The other thing is like having to figure out which of my planners I'm going to take. Like, I have all these planners, and which ones am I going to take? How am I going to do it? I do have a fun solution for my washi tape, which I had already started working on, but it's going to take me a while. So I have this little book. So it's just like a business card holder book that I got from Amazon. And then I used my Cricut to put the washi book on top. And then I have a little Simply Gilded sticker on the back. But you basically can just put your business cards in there, right? And then you can take the business cards and wrap them in washi tape. So my plan is, this holds like a ton, okay? It actually will hold some on each side. So each little sleeve here would hold one. So you could put one on this side of the sleeve and one on that side of the sleeve. But I think it's going to get too thick, because I've only done a few rows and it's already getting super thick. So I think that I will just swatch out, basically like roll out as many washi tape samples as I can. And that way I can take a bunch of my collection without having to actually like have a giant thing of rolls that probably is going to get lost or beat up along the way. And then I can have it all just in this little thing. And it doesn't seem to affect the stickiness yet. So I've been using, so here's the other thing that I have, and this is what I originally bought. On Amazon, you can buy ID cards. They're just blank ID cards that, you know, you can put into like an ID card printer and print them out. And I have been using those for my washi samples. So I have a little business card holder, like a little plastic business card holder on my desk. And so I've been using some of my washi tapes that I use the most in this little business card holder. I know it's kind of not showing because of the lighting, but I have it there. And so far, none of the stickiness has been affected by it, because I've got my Erin Condren rolls there. But when I bought 100 pack of these ID cards because they're really thick and sturdy. But when I started filling this book with those ID cards, I realized that it's not going to work because they're too thick. So it's, you know, I think the business cards will work out better because they're not quite as thick, so I can fill more washi in. So that's that plan. If you have any other ideas of great ways, I also, if you go to my my Instagram stories over on Instagram.com/Sarah Cannon, you will see that I have purchased a little rolling craft tote that everything is going to have to go into. So basically I'm trying to find things that will fit into that. So I have the Erin Condren accordion pin case. So we'll see. A recipe box is not a bad idea either for stickers. So that's something I'm thinking about for stickers, is a recipe box type thing. I've been keeping my stickers in these like photo albums. So you can get these at like Walmart or Michael's for like $1. And I've been using these to store my stickers for a while, but I have, like 10 of these, and I don't want to have to take them all, right? So maybe I'll have to. We'll see what fits, I guess. Once it gets here, we'll see what fits. Sunlight Skincare says, Sarah, I've been implementing your task blocking method and my productivity has been through the roof. Oh, Robin, I'm so glad to hear that. That is so awesome. I think that is awesome. It's working really well for me too. And I don't think I'm going to be able to take my time tracking planner. So I'm going to have to start implementing everything. And then I've got all of these different A5 binders, and I love switching them out every month, but I'm not going to be able to do that either. And I'm not going to have a printer to be able to print out my stuff. So I think I'm probably going to take this one since it's my favorite of all time. And I will just set it up the way I want it to be. And this will just be my planner for the next however many months, and we shall see what happens. So that is going to be, I think it's going to be challenging, but it'll also be super fun. So fill small boxes of washi and other stuff and leave it with a friend to mail to you when you need them. That's not a bad idea either, honestly, of sending, like, I could send a planner or something like that to somebody that's set up in a different way, or like another bag of planner supplies, and be like, okay, send me this one when we get settled somewhere and I'll send you back. I'll mail this back to you. Who knows? We'll see kind of what happens, but it's going to be fun and it'll be an adventure. The Do-Over says, I live in an RV and my hobby takes up a lot of room. Yeah. I feel like I know RVs come in various sizes with various perks and things like that. So I just don't see it. I think the driving of the RV would be really hard for me. And we're potentially going from Florida to Texas to maybe to the Grand Canyon. So like, I don't know that I could drive it. I think I would be blah. So, yay, Elantra Club over here. Summer, we are in the Elantra Club as well. It is mad small for 4 people with a giant car seat and stuff. So we'll see, but we'll see how it goes. Starla says, may want to store your pens and such in a cooler bag to protect them from the heat. That is actually a really good idea too. So I'm not getting rid of my planners and washi. I'm just storing them. I'm not getting rid of them. But they're going to go into storage until we buy a house. So it could be 3 months from now. It could be a year from now. Like, I don't know. We're just kind of playing it, Bye. Yeah. Well, and we talked about a car, but if we bought a car, then that loan might keep us from buying a house, depending on how it all goes. So it's just, they say like the worst thing you can do before you try to get a home loan as a self-published or as a self-employed person is to take out a car loan. So it's just one of those things. We don't know. We're going to play it by ear. It'll be an adventure. But I do want to get to this episode. So we're going to go on and do this. But I have been really appreciating all of the advice that's been coming through, like Little Forest Homes. Lisa has been sending me advice on homeschooling that has been extremely helpful. We have been getting advice for how to pack, what to take, things to think about, but we're mostly going to be in Airbnbs or hotels and things like that. Now we definitely won't be getting a second car, but we might be getting a new car. I just don't know. And digital planning might be a better option. I did just buy an iPad Pro. So digital planning, but it never has worked as well for me, but maybe now's the time to step it up and see if I can make it work. Right. I would love to see you, Christabelle. It would be so awesome. If we do come to the Grand Canyon or anywhere near, we will try to come by Denver, and see what we can do, but it'll be really interesting to see how it all comes together. And we can call the bank and be like, can we buy a car? But then we talked about that too. And it's like, even if they tell you, oh, it's fine, no problem, a lot of times they can just, so you can rent Ubers instead of buying a car. Well, I don't know what you mean exactly about that, but like, we couldn't go Ubering from Florida to Texas, with 4 people. And we looked at renting a car, but that's like $3,000 a month to get a bigger car than what we have. And I just don't want to spend that kind of money. So there's lots and lots of little things to take into consideration. And I don't know exactly what will be. Maybe we will just be bringing our little tiny Hyundai Elantra and we will make it work. I don't know. We're going to figure it out. But in last episode, so now kind of switching back to Rival Demons, in our last episode, we had one of the biggest, so if you weren't here, you might want to walk away, right? The person you talked, no, we have a guy that was going to do our home loan because, we had to get pre-approved for this house and everything. So that guy would be the guy we would want to talk to and say, like, would we be putting ourselves in a bad situation for the house loan? But I just feel like banks will tell you anything. And then later they'll be like, you never should have taken out that loan. That's what happened to us when George was quitting his job. We had told them he was quitting his job. And then when we went to get approved for the loan, they were like, all you have is self-published income. You can't get this loan. And we had to go to a different bank. So it's just one of those kind of things. I see what you mean. So, but that's if you're in an RV, like we're not going to be doing an RV. We're going to be, in a car the whole time, and then Airbnbs. So that'll be kind of fun. Okay. So last episode for Rival Demons, we are getting very close. We have 4 episodes only remaining. So like I told you, pretty much from this episode on, it is nonstop action and like reveal after cliffhanger. So, we are going to just do a quick recap and then we're going to get straight into the reading. So in the last episode, Harper has been trying to train and everything else. And she finally has this conversation with Jackson where she's like, he tells her that there's a hunter that has been kind of sniffing out the entrance. And he's like, I can't even figure out how she knew you were here because it's not like you've been casting magic, but she has actually secretly been casting a ton of magic and pushing her power all out. And that has, that little bit of power has given the hunters kind of like a trail to follow, like a scent to follow. So they have found her there and it's kind of her fault. And she had to explain that to him and he really got upset about it. But she, they had it kind of all out with each other and she wasn't sure what they were going to do in terms of their relationship and that sort of thing. So she also found out that he's already looked through those books that the hunters brought with them and there's nothing there that's going to help them with this spell. And so she's just feeling like nobody trusts her. Nobody believes that she's going to be strong enough to do anything about the hunters. But she also knows that she is feeling more alone than ever. So a few days later or whatever, Jackson comes to the suite and he's all dressed up, just looking so nice. And she's thinking he's coming to apologize to me and take me out to dinner or whatever. But then what she found out is that he was there to pick Leah up for a special dinner or special event they were having. And she, comes out and she's all dressed up and they go to this big event. Well, Harper follows because she's just like, I have to know if they're dating or what's going on. So she follows invisibly over to this grand ballroom or whatever, where she finds out that huge shock to her, Jackson and Leah have been promised in marriage to each other since they were kids. And so they are known as the future king and queen of the North. And Harper is like, what the hell? And she almost disrupts her invisibility. And Jackson, who can see through glamours, happens to look back and see her. And she just takes off. She basically has to hold on to her visibility and go. And then when she finally gets a little ways down the hall, she starts running. So that's where we leave our heroine from last week and where we're going to pick up from here. So this is chapter 39. We can never be together. I couldn't stay. Whatever safety the underground had provided was gone now. There was nothing left for me here. No knowledge to gain, no protection from hurt. I burst through the door to the suite and ran straight to my room. I picked up the backpack Essex had given me and began stuffing it with clothes and anything I could think of that I might need. Surprisingly, there were no tears, just the knowledge that I had to go. Marianne stepped through the doorway to my room. What happened? She asked. What are you doing? I'm leaving, I said, testing the words on my tongue. I disappeared into the bathroom to collect my toothbrush and other toiletries that would fit into my bag. Marianne followed me. Leaving? You mean the underground? No, you can't leave. Where will you go? I don't know yet, I said, storming back into the bedroom. I didn't even want to stand still in any one place for more than a few seconds, scared that if I stopped moving, I would have to face what had just happened. Is it really that bad? She asked, her face twisted with worry. It's worse, I said. He's going to marry her. Marianne gasped, her hand flying to her mouth. That can't be true. I heard it with my own ears, I said, a slight tremble in my voice that only made me angry. He's apparently been promised to her since they were born. I shoved the last of my things into the backpack and zipped it up, having to squish it down to get it to close. You would think he might have mentioned that at some point before he told me he loved me, I said. I love you, but oh, by the way, here's yet another reason we can never be together. I picked up one of my notebooks and tore a page from the back, then carried my backpack out to the living room and set it on the table. I don't think you should go, Marianne said. You're not thinking clearly. It's not safe out there. I thought of the hunter who was waiting for me. She was absolutely right. I was not going to be safe out there. But I wasn't safe in here either. At least out there, I knew who my enemies were. I sat down at the table and did my best to steady my hand as I wrote. I didn't get any further than his name before I paused and felt the hot tears bubbling toward the surface. What could I possibly say to him in a note that would let him feel even a tenth of what I was feeling inside? I'll come with you, Marianne said. Just give me some time to get my things together. I grabbed her arm before she had a chance to walk away. No way, I said. You can't come. You can't even cast right now, and who knows how long before your injuries totally heal. Plus, you can't leave Essex. Maybe he could come with us, she said. We'll stop by the marketplace before we go. He had to head back to the shop to help his mom with something. I shook my head. You know as well as I do that you can't come with me. It's way too dangerous. Marianne slumped into the chair beside me, tears in her eyes. I don't want you to go either. I can't stay, I said. My hand trembled as I turned back to the blank. Turned back to the blank page. I wanted to say that I hated him for what he'd done to me. I wanted to say that I never wanted to see him again. But in my heart, neither of those things was true. The truth was that I loved him, and he had broken my heart with his lies. So in the end, that's all I wrote. Chapter 40, Trying to Make Sense of the Scene. I'd heard Leah once mention that she kept a spare crystal to Jackson's room in her drawer. Thinking of it now made me feel disgusted and sad, but I walked straight to the drawer of her desk and reached in for the small stone that opened his room. I wanted him to come back from his date with Leah and find my note on his bed. And I needed to hurry. He'd seen me there despite the crowd of demons in the room. I knew he wouldn't be able to get away from the party, but as soon as he had a chance, he would probably come looking for me. He'd probably have some explanation as to why he hadn't told me yet, but nothing he could say could change the truth of it. I wanted to be gone by the time he came looking for me. I hugged Marianne and promised her that I would find a way to contact her when I got settled somewhere. To be honest, I had no idea how I would get word to her or where I would go, but if I managed to survive the hunter at the gate, I knew I would find my way somehow. The hallway was deserted when I left the suite, and I ignored the fact that a shiver of disappointment jabbed through me. So what if he hadn't rushed away from Leah's side to come find me? This was how it was now, and I needed to find a way to understand it. I walked to the door of his small apartment and pressed the stone into the symbol on the wall. The door clicked open. I'd never been inside his room before. As far as I knew, he didn't spend a lot of time here except to sleep at night. I expected to see a smaller, simpler version of our own rooms with maybe a few of his clothes strewn about or something. I flipped on the light and froze. What I never expected in a million years was to come face to face with myself. Covering every inch of every wall in the entire one-room apartment were drawings of me. Confused, I let my bag fall to the floor. I stepped to the nearest wall and put my hand on one of the pages. The scene was gruesome, yet beautiful. He'd put so much time and detail into my face, I might as well have been looking into a mirror. I pulled several from the wall, only to realize that underneath were more of the same. He'd drawn the scene from every possible angle, from every distance, some in pencil, but most in horrifying color. Each drawing was some version of the same story. Me, lying in a sea of white snow, bright red blood splattered in random patterns against the white. My blonde hair was sprawled out against the snow, my eyes closed as if I might just be sleeping. The white strip of the ritual dress clung to my wrist, but there was fresh blood staining it now. Slowly, I walked around the apartment, pulling several of the drawings from the wall to study them. In one, he'd drawn a close-up of my hand, my fist closed around something I couldn't quite make out. In another, he'd pulled back from the scene as if it were hovering above me. There was so much blood, much of it seemed to pour from a wound in my back as I lay against the pure white snow. Overwhelmed, I fell to the floor, spreading the drawings out before me in a circle, trying to make sense of the scene. He must have seen this over and over in his visions, to have recreated it each time in such excruciating detail. In some, I could almost count the number of eyelashes on my eyes. What had he been looking for? Some clue he could use to protect me from this fate? Hadn't he learned anything in all the many years of his immortal life? Nothing he drew could be changed or prevented. My eyes filled with tears, blurring the pictures before me in one unavoidable mass. When the door to the apartment swung open a few minutes later, I looked up, a single tear escaping down my cheek. Jackson stood in the doorway, and as our eyes met, all the walls we'd been holding up since we'd come here crumbled swiftly to the ground. Chapter 41. I'd almost forgotten. Why didn't you tell me? My voice cracked with tears. I motioned to all of the hundreds of drawings spread around the room. Jackson moved to me, the door closing behind him. He fell to the floor in front of me, the papers crackling beneath the weight of his knees. I wanted to find a way to make it change, he said. I won't let this be your end. I shook my head. You know better. He grabbed several papers and crumbled them into a ball. No, he said, the green of his eyes stormy and dark and wet. I can change it. I just have to find the secret, the weak spot. There's no way it ends like this. I can keep you safe here until I find a way. I placed my hand on his knee. Touching him for the first time in so long, I'd almost forgotten his warmth. There's no escaping these things once you've seen them, I said. And you know it just as well as I do. Trying to protect me from it is only going to pull us further apart. And I never wanted to feel this apart from you. He looked away, not meeting my eyes. I don't know what's been going on with you since we got to the shadow world, I said, all the things I'd been holding back rushing to the surface. I don't understand what's going on with you and Leah, but I thought you knew by now that keeping secrets from people you care about only leads to sorrow and loneliness. Why can't you just be honest with me? He looked down. So you really were there tonight? I nodded. I had to know. He threw the balled up papers across the room. I never wanted you to know about that, he said. I laughed, then felt the sting of tears in my nose. Don't you know I would eventually find out? What was your plan, to see if I would help you free Erden, then just let me watch all of you disappear back through the portal, never to be seen again? Were you just going to marry her and take your place by her side on the throne and never tell me? Jackson studied my face, his eyebrows drawn together. How could you say that? He asked. How could you even think that? What am I supposed to think, Jackson? You've done nothing but lock me out of your life for the past how many weeks? I said, standing. I walked toward the back of the apartment. You lied to me. I didn't lie, he said. He stood and moved a few steps behind me. I just didn't tell you everything. You did lie, I said, turning to face him. I've asked you before if there was more to your relationship with Leah than just friendship, and you said no. That's the truth, he said. The truth? I shook my head, furious. Then how do you explain what I just saw back there? How do you explain the fact that everyone down here believes you to be her future king? Jackson ran a shaky hand through his hair and turned around, pacing. Yes, when I was born, I was promised to Leah, he said. He paused as if trying to figure out what he wanted to say. My father is the king's most trusted advisor. He sits at the head of the king's council, and apart from the king himself, he's the most powerful man in the northern kingdom. My brother and I were born before the king and his mate had any children. Twins are extremely rare among my people, so when the king's daughter was born, as a sign of loyalty, my father offered to give one of his twins as husband to the princess. Why you? I asked, my heart beating so hard in my chest. Because technically I was first born, he said. I absolutely had no choice in the matter. I was promised to her before I even understood what that meant. I sat down on the edge of his bed, taking it all in. You never tried to get out of it? I never had a reason to try, he said. I understood it as my duty to the kingdom, and I didn't question it. But when Erden disappeared, I expected my father and the king to go after him, to do something about it. But they didn't, I said. He shook his head. No. My parents mourned his loss, but they accepted it. The kingdom is so full of fear when it comes to the Order of Shadows, they would rather try to outlive the Order and accept the sacrifices than fight them directly. The king believes that if we wait another 100 years, the Order will die out on its own, without violence. I frowned. But demons go missing nearly every day. Don't they even care about what's happening over in my world? Jackson's jaw tensed, and he continued to pace. A small price to pay in the long run, they say. The king believes many more demons will lose their lives if we fight, he said. I couldn't just sit back and let my brother's memory fade away. I didn't know exactly what they were doing to Erden over there, but I knew it was some form of torture. I couldn't live like that. He sat down next to me, so close our legs almost touched. I felt his closeness like an ache in the pit of my stomach. I had no idea if I was losing him forever or finally understanding him for the first time. Leah, she tried to talk me out of it at first, he said. She cared for Erden, but she did everything she could to convince me that it would be better for me to wait until we became rulers. She said that when we took over the kingdom, we could build our own army. She was in love with you, wasn't she? My voice trembled. Jackson paused. She's always loved me, he said. She was terrified that if I went after Erden, she would lose me forever. So when I finally did cross over, she followed me. Once she got over and saw what was happening to the Shadow Demons, she was ready to join me and fight back. But by then, anything there was between us was dead. Silence filled the room as I let his words wash over me. I stared up at the drawings of my death and wondered where that left us. He brought me here to protect me, but had also stepped right back into his role as Leah's future king. Had he traded his own future for my safety? Jackson shifted on the bed, turning to me with eyes so clear and focused it took my breath away. I have never loved her, Harper. I swear you are the only one I have ever loved. His words hit me with the weight of the weeks I'd spent alone down here, and I was helpless to even respond. Did he still love me? I wanted to ask, but was too afraid to know. I am not marrying Leah, he said. She knows that, but the demons down here see us as the future of their kingdom. If I had come down here telling them the truth about you and me, they would have hated you, trusted you even less. They would have seen you as an enemy to their own hopes. I couldn't let that happen. He took my hands in his. But I also knew this was the place where you would be safest, he said. I'm sorry, I couldn't tell you the truth, but I needed you to believe things were over between us. One look or touch at the wrong time would have been disastrous, Harper. I need you to understand that I never stopped loving you. All the fear and doubt I'd been holding on to was released in that moment. I choked on a sob, unable to stop my emotions from pouring forth. Don't go, he said, glancing at my packed bag on the floor. He moved down to his knees in front of me on the floor, clutching tight to my hands. Not a moment goes by that I don't think of you and long to be with you, kissing you, sharing everything with you. It's been torture being apart from you, but as long as you were safe, I knew I was doing the right thing. When I sensed your pain at the dinner tonight, it broke my heart. Tears filled his eyes, and I had never seen anything so beautiful in my life. I had thought all hope of his love was gone, but with him on his knees before me now, I knew I'd been so wrong. Stay, he said. I'll find a way to make them understand, I promise. I can't live without you, Harper. Please, stay. Chapter 42, Divided Far Too Long. I searched his clear green eyes, hardly believing this could be real. My breath came in short gasps, my heart breaking and mending in the same moment. Relief and wonder flooded through me. I lost my ability to hear. I could only see him there before me. This whole time, he'd still loved me, wanted to be with me. At night, as I lay in bed, missing him with every fiber of my being, he had been just steps away, feeling the same loneliness and pain. I pulled my hands from his and placed them on either side of his face, our souls locked in a gaze. No more words between us, only love. He lifted his mouth to mine, softly at first. The taste of our tears mingled on our quivering lips. His hands reached up to grab hold of me, his fingers tightening around my forearms. I opened my mouth slightly, speaking to him with my kiss, telling him that if he wanted me, I would never leave. I slid from the edge of the bed, my body pressing tight against his as his arms circled around me. Our kiss became a conversation, a confession, a collision of two souls left divided far too long. I poured myself into him, deeper and stronger with each touch of our lips. My hands ran through his hair, down his back. My fingers fumbled with each button on his shirt, wanting nothing but to know the warmth of his skin and rippling strength of his muscles. Jackson slowed his kiss, then pulled back to stare at me. The expression of love on his face was so pure and true, yet became lost in it. He lifted his hand to my cheek, a single finger trailing through the path of my tears. My arms broke out in shivering goosebumps, and my breath came in quick, shallow bursts. He ran his fingertips from my face to my neck and down to my collarbone. With aching slowness, he slid the straps of my tank top off my shoulders, exploring my skin in a way no one ever had before. I responded with the tips of my fingers on his chest, then slid down his side, running my hand along the scar that marked the only spot of imperfection on his entire form. I gasped as I touched the scar, pulling my hand away as if I'd been burned by it. What? He whispered. A flash of battle ran through my mind. She did this to you? I asked. The tiger I killed when we first came through the portal? Jackson nodded. How did you know? I saw her when I touched you. I said, wondering if her death somehow connected us. Hesitating, I touched the scar again, feeling a piece of the pain he'd experienced when it happened. How long ago must that have been? I'd first seen the scar back in Peachville months ago. There's so much I still don't know about you. His stomach quivered at my soft touch, and his chest rose and fell with each jagged breath. You've never completely let your walls down around me, I said. I've only ever wanted to protect you, he said. Your secrets hurt me, I said. I touched his face, and he placed his hand over mine so lovingly, regret in his eyes. Promise me that you won't ever keep anything from me again. If you want to be with me, then I have to be your partner, your equal, not some fragile little girl you're afraid to break. I'm stronger than you think I am, Jackson. His eyes searched mine, and a smile tugged at the corner of his lips. I think I'm finally understanding that. He leaned in for another kiss, but before our lips met, a loud knock brought us both to our feet. The sound was frantic, pounding. Worry stabbed at my heart. Something terrible had happened. I felt it with absolute certainty in my heart. Jackson rushed to the door and flung it open to find Essex standing there, out of breath, eyes wild with fear. What is it? He said. Essex leaned against the door frame, catching his breath. A hunter, he said, then looked up at me. A hunter has gotten inside the underground. Chapter 43, No Matter the Danger. Jackson turned to me, panic in his eyes. We have to get you out of here, he said. He grabbed his shirt from where it had fallen on the floor. Essex looked from Jackson to me, then back again. I was guessing a lot of things were starting to make sense to him all of a sudden. I'm not going anywhere, I said. I can't let innocent shadow demons die when the hunter is here, obviously here for me. Many have already been killed, Essex said, his hands shaking. The hunter has also taken a hostage. Who? Jackson asked. The daughter of Andros and Aurelia. I cried out, cut to the core at this news. Sasha? Essex nodded. The hunter is saying she will execute the child if Andros does not hand you over to the order. I grabbed Jackson's arm. We have to do something, I said. We can't let this happen. Jackson kicked the wall with startling force. Damn it, he yelled. Where are all the soldiers? The entire resistance army should be able to handle one lousy hunter. Essex sucked in a ragged breath. No, he said. The resistance is locked inside the training room. A special practice was called for the evening, and somehow the doors to the training room were sealed shut. No one can go in or out. How the hell did a hunter get inside anyway? I thought Andros said there was no way. My mouth went dry. No, he said the only way was if someone on the council let the hunter in. I said, dizziness washing over me. Who would do this? Essex and Jackson stared at me, looking confused. I can't believe that, Jackson said. No one on the council would do this. Well, the hunter got in somehow, I said. But that's not important now. What matters is that demons have died tonight because of me. I won't let Sasha die too. I pushed past Essex, headed toward the grand hall. Jackson reached for me, pulling me back to him. You can't, he said. It's too dangerous. I gestured to all of the drawings on his wall. I don't die today, I said. Not here, not like this. I'll be okay. He shook his head, not loosening his grip on my arm. If you really want to prove that you believe in me and you see my strength, then you'll let me go, I said, standing up straighter. You'll stand by my side and support me no matter the danger. Jackson let his hand slide down my arm, taking my hand and squeezing it tight. It's the right thing to do, I said. We can save her. He nodded, and together we walked toward the marketplace where the hunter was waiting. Chapter 44, She Comes. The feel of evil engulfed me the moment I stepped into the marketplace. It oozed throughout the room like the smell of something badly burned. I didn't even have to ask where I could find the thing. A darkness circled the front staircase. Go back to the suite, I told Essex. You don't need to be here for this. Is Marianne there? He nodded. Yes. She wanted to come to your aid, but I talked her into staying inside the room for safety. Good, I said. Go back in there and lock the door. Hide and don't come out until you're sure this hunter is gone. I will do this, he said. I will keep her safe for you. I gave him a sad smile, then turned my attention toward the cries and commotion in the front of the hall. Jackson's hand was still clasped to mine. Well, it's possible I'm going to get a chance to show you some of what I learned in the training sessions, I said with a nervous laugh. He didn't find it funny at all. He kissed my forehead, his lips lingering for a long moment. Come on, I said. My first few steps were weak with nerves. Did I really know what I was getting myself into here? I'd never faced a hunter before. How could I be so sure I could handle her? One thing I had on my side was that I knew the hunter hadn't come here to kill me. The Order would never have wanted that. They still had a ritual to complete, and they needed me alive in Peachville to pull that off. Still, I wasn't looking forward to whatever pain and torture this hunter would be allowed to dish out. I just had to make sure she didn't have a chance to capture me. I set my jaw and lifted my chin higher in the air. I could do this. I was strong. I was ready. Slowly, my steps became more and more confident. By the time we reached the hunter, I had given myself the pep talk of all pep talks, and I was prepared for whatever she was going to throw at me. But when we turned the corner and the evil being came into view, I choked back a scream. She was a thing of nightmares, a horror of a human being. While her body took the basic form of a woman, her skin had grown transparent and ghost-like, a grayish-green haze surrounding her. Cold radiated from her like a blizzard. She wore a long black gown, the bottom of which rose several feet off the ground. She must have sensed my presence because her head snapped toward me. Her eyes were completely black, even where the whites of her eyes should have been showing. She smiled at me, her lips curling up around rotten, pointed teeth. She comes. The small crowd of demons that had gathered followed her gaze, and the tension grew even thicker. I let my eyes pass across the spectators, settling on the worried faces of Andros and his wife. Andros turned, his eyes meeting mine. He took several long strides to reach me. I don't know what happened, he explained, his words directed at Jackson. 1 minute we were at the party, and the next we heard this awful screaming. Is anyone working to release the soldiers? Jackson asked. I heard they were locked inside the training room. Andros wrung his hands and nodded. I have Jericho working on it, but he can't seem to figure out what's holding it closed. Jackson looked around as if trying to find a way out of this mess. Where's Sasha? I asked. Andros seemed to really see me for the first time. He studied me, his eyes lingering on my hand, entwined with Jackson's. She's behind that thing, he stuttered. She's going to be okay, I said. I knew it wasn't something I had any right to promise, but somehow I knew it in my heart. He studied my face, but he didn't seem to believe me. What are we going to do? Again, he addressed Jackson. Everyone always took me for granted, believing I was powerless and weak. Maybe it was time I showed them a different side to myself. I just hoped that in the end I looked brave instead of stupid or dead. I pulled my hand from Jackson's grip and stepped forward so close to the hunter I could smell the stench of decay dripping from her every pore. I'm the one you've come for, I said. Release the girl and I'll offer you a deal. The hunter's head fell back and she cackled high and piercing and so loud the ground beneath me shook. Who are you to think you can offer me a deal? She asked. Her voice had a strange echo to it, as if several voices were crammed into her body. All you have to offer me is your life, and I could take that at any moment without your permission." It was my turn to laugh. I was relieved that my voice sounded much more confident than I felt inside. "You may not need my permission, but that doesn't mean you're allowed to kill me," I said. "Let's not lie to each other. We both know who you work for." The decaying witch narrowed her black eyes at me, and she flew toward me, her face coming so close to mine I almost gagged on the stench. Behind her, I caught a glimpse of the child. She was caught in some type of dark netting. Tears ran down her tiny cheeks. My stomach twisted. I swallowed and pulled my shit together. "So, what about that deal?" I asked, angry at the small quiver that crept into my tone. "You think I cannot sense your fear?" the witch asked. Up close, her face was even more terrifying. Holes littered her rotting skin, the greenish smoke moving in and out of them like worms slithering through flesh. It took everything I had to stand my ground. "I may fear you, but believe me, if you harm that little girl, you will never see another day in this world." The hunter flew back to her place near the girl. "So cute that you have such confidence," she said. "I can't wait to break you down to the lowest groveling version of yourself." Behind me, I heard Jackson step forward. I threw my hand up and shook my head. There was nothing here he could do except get in the way. "Let the girl go and you'll get your chance," I said, raising an eyebrow in challenge. The hunter studied me, then looked down at the child. "What is it that you're offering to me?" I drew in a breath, locking my knees to keep from collapsing. My hands were sweaty and numb, but I kept my chin raised and my eyes open. "A trade," I said. "You let the girl go and I agree to come with you." The crowd around us gasped, whispers rising up. Jackson moved to me, his mouth close to my ear. "What are you doing?" he said, his words short and angry. "You can't do this. I won't let you." "I know what I'm doing," I said. But did I? I was working on pure instinct and adrenaline. The hunter laughed again. She crouched low beside Sasha. "You would give your life for this demon?" "If that's what it takes," I said, "let her go and I'll come with you on one condition." "Condition?" The evil witch flew high into the air, her voice low and fearsome. "You dare to place a condition on someone as powerful as me? I could snatch you from this place so fast you would forget your own name." I shook my head. "No, if you could do that, you would have done it already," I said. "Your years of life had made you wise, and you know that if you take me, you'll have a serious fight on your hand. The same thing goes for the girl. You kill her or hurt her, and the resistance will never stop until you're dead." She was listening now, and I knew I'd hit on the truth, or some version of it. "You can't risk a fight right now," I said. "What if I was to somehow die in the crossfire? What would Priestess Winter do to you if you screwed this up?" The hunter's rotting jaw tensed, her teeth gnashed together with a gruesome grinding sound. "I offer myself up to you willingly," I said, lifting my hands to show my cooperation. "All you have to do is let the girl go safely. Then I will agree to a contest, a duel." "What kind of duel?" the witch asked. I wondered what kind of power the order had over such a being. When I mentioned Priestess Winter, the rotting hunter had actually winced, fear flashing in her dead eyes. "A contest between you and me alone, with no interference from any other being in this place," I said. "But since you are not allowed to kill me, and I do not have the strength or power to kill you, we duel until one of us either surrenders or is no longer conscious. If you win, I'll go with you, and no one in this place will fight for me. But if I win, you become a prisoner of the resistance." The witch laughed, a low gurgling sound. "The priestess told me you were a foolish girl," she said. "I could defeat you with a single flick of my finger." A cold rope of fear tightened around my throat. making it difficult for me to breathe. I struggled against the paralyzing terror of it. Then do it, I said. Dun, dun, dun. And there I shall leave you until Wednesday. And we shall see what happens with the hunter. It's a terrible place to leave you, I realize, but it's a good breaking point. My hands are cold, I think, from just like being in that emotion for sure. I was trying to read some of the comments like in between, but then I'm like, don't pay attention because then I'll lose my concentration. So it's horrible for those who haven't read it. I know it's so mean. I'm such a mean person. So there we finally have what I feel like is such a major, huge, there's two kind of huge milestone moments in this one set of chapters. One is a huge turning point between Jackson and Harper, because you finally have that moment of truth. And, okay, so we can't necessarily forgive him, but we do kind of see at this point that he's had this vision. He gets these visions of the future and he can't change them, but he desperately wants to. And he hasn't learned after all this time, as we have seen in some of the previous things, previous books, that he still, since he can see it, he still desperately wants to be able to change it, especially when he sees her in this place that she looks dead. Like, is she dead? Every time he draws her, her eyes are closed. She's surrounded in blood. Maybe she's dead. And he believes that she's going to die. So he thinks, okay, then I'll go back to this life that I never really wanted to keep her safe. And the only way to keep her safe is to make sure that nobody here knows the truth of our relationship. Because if they find out about the truth of us, they won't let us stay here. And so he knows all of that stuff, but he just didn't tell her because he knew that this was the best way to keep her out of it, because he didn't want her to say, no, it'll be fine, whatever. But just like everybody else, Jackson still continues to underestimate her. So this is when he does his little half smile there to her, and she says, I'm stronger than you think I am. And he says, I'm starting to understand that, is really a turning point for Jackson as well, of like, and this whole scene here with the hunter that you'll get to see is a turning point for how he sees her. And it's a big, big change in their relationship. And I just love that, because it's like, can you imagine feeling this whole time like he doesn't even care about me, and then walking into the room and seeing hundreds of drawings of you, but not like happy, beautiful, I love you, look at your lips drawings, but like I am dead lying in the snow kind of drawings, and him trying to find any little thing to zoom in on a hand, figure out where they are, try to prevent it. Like he's just been driving himself mad with trying to figure out how to keep her alive because he loves her so much. And I think that really shows, who he really is in a big way. And this is why I tell people, don't skip. If you're reading through these books, don't skip A Demon's Wrath, because the way the order of the books work is you go through book 6, which we will read. And then the next book in the series, book 7, is Emerald Darkness. But there's time that passes between book 6 and 7. And A Demon's Wrath is sort of like a bridging kind of book, but it's Jackson's point of view, and you see his life before Aridin was taken and when Aridin was taken and before he comes to Peachville. You get to see all of that stuff. Your shirt says Mommin' and what? Mommin' ain't easy. So funny. And it's one of those things. So you get to really see, not only do you get to understand Jackson so much better, but you also will begin to understand Leah a lot better once you read that series. So I was joking with George before, because there was somebody in the Coven or the Discord at some point that was like, I'm not going to read A Demon's Wrath. It's just, we know what happens, but you really don't, because it's so much about the characters. Like, sure, that Aridin gets taken by the Order and Jackson comes through. Like, those like the overarching story, but what you don't know is the true depth of what it felt like to Jackson when he loses his brother and all of that stuff between him and Leah. And he he basically recounts that entire story in that book. So if you read ahead, don't forget A Demon's Wrath. It's a really good book. It was originally published in 2 parts, and now it's just one full book. And also, the second big thing that happens in this one is we get to really see a hunter up close for the first time. Hunters they're super pivotal to this whole series, and you will see them over and over and over and over again, and learn more about how they're created and who these witches are and everything else. And it is cool to finally see one in person, and like, they're rotting and they're gross, but they're still partially human, but not really. It's just like, oh man, they're gross. This is one of the things like I would absolutely love to see in TV. It's like I can see this so much in a television show or in a movie of Harper walking into this giant grand marketplace where there's all these tents, like a tent city inside a giant black like obsidian room with this long staircase, and you've got all these demons sitting there like scared that they're in trouble, and some people have died, and then she has to face this hunter. And I can just see this so much like in my head that I wish I could actually see it on screen and see what these hunters look like. Like the stank was close. Yeah, exactly. Sherry says these books just keep getting better. I've read them three times and really thinking about starting again. Thank you so much for that. But I think that look, we've got Andrew. You guys haven't seen Andrew in a long time. He's still in his PJs and his hair is crazy. You want to say hello?
Hi.
Hi, everybody. And we got Evie. My kids are so mismatched and PJ'd because this is our lives. Here, this one. No eat, okay? Everybody's probably glad to see you. They haven't seen you in forever. Yeah. That was an hour?
No, not.
How long has it been since they've seen you?
Yeah.
It's been months, I think, since you guys have seen Andrew, right? He's getting so tall. He needs a haircut before we go on the road. Are you excited about our trip?
Mm-hmm.
Yep. He's pretty excited. All right. Well, Jennifer says, if you only knew how many of us are in our PJs too. Well, let's hope so. I think it has been months. It's been too long because he's had his screen time during this time. But I hope that you guys enjoyed this episode. This is really like this whole next part of the book is so pivotal to the whole series. This fight with the hunter and everything that happens after, and the twist that comes at the end. So I cannot wait to introduce you guys to it because I think it's going to be fun for those of you that have not read it before. We ordered food to be delivered right when we got here from our favorite barbecue place. So I think George was checking to see if it was here yet. It's not here yet. Everybody's hungry. But anyway, thank you guys so much. I hope you enjoyed the episode. I loved this one. I hope that you can find it in your heart to forgive Jackson. So Kayla said, who won the Vengeful Darkness book? So I have already pinned it to the Friday coffee chat, Helly Blue, HeliBloo. I don't know if that's an actual name or an avatar name, but either way, if you are watching this on replay or here with us live, you are the winner of the Vengeful Darkness paperback. So just send me a message at sarah@sarahcannon.com with your name and address. Sounds of crazy family over there. And I will send this to you. I'm also going to be giving one away on Instagram, maybe starting this week, maybe starting next week. So if you want another chance to win, I bought several copies of it. One of them is going to Christabelle along with all of the book plates that I need to get sent out. So loose leaf page says, how close are we to the end of this book? So we have 3 episodes left. We have episode 10 on Wednesday and then 11 and 12 next week, and we will be done. So this book is so thick. So the book I'm reading to you right now is maybe 80,000 words or so. This book is like 120. So Demons Forever, which is the next book in the series, book 6, it's like 110,000 words. So that one is going to take us more than probably 12 episodes to read, but I haven't quite gotten it figured out yet. And I'll be reading it with from different Airbnbs across the country. So this will be a fun experience. So just be aware that potentially some of I'll probably be using a laptop instead of this webcam, and who knows, we're just going to play it by ear. But thank you guys so much for all the encouraging messages. Thank you to those of you who signed up for Publish and Thrive. Just a shameless plug, if you have been interested in self-publishing and doing what I do as a writer and learning the ropes, this is not a course on how to write books, but it is a course on how to publish books and start your business and all of that. So if you've been writing and you're really interested in learning more about self-publishing and marketing and all of that stuff, then come join the class, Publish and Thrive. It's only offered a couple of times a year, and it's open for enrollment until August 8th. But I know some of you have already signed up, so I'm excited for that. Also, come join us on Discord if you want to come hang out in between lives. We are definitely there and hanging out. So, all right, guys, that is it for the day. I will see you all on Wednesday. Love to you. See you then for an epic battle with Hunter.